Welcome everyone to the L7C podcast NBA edition. Today we are at we're a little over now the halfway point of the NBA season. So we're going to be talking about some mid-season stuff. We're going to be talking about the Cavs. We're going to talk about LeBron breaking the all-time record. We're going to talk about load management. And we are going to be talking about this crazy situation with Kyrie Irving as we have breaking news on the subject. But first, we have the NBA aficionado, Mr. Evan Debo. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Martin. It has been as always, it's a treat to watch the sport. It's an ongoing soap opera, and as you teased amongst a number of topics that we're going to chat about today, we have breaking news right at the start of this podcast. So for listeners, last week or 2 weeks back, Kyrie Irving's camp put out.
Before you go into that, Evan, just real quick. Yeah. Is this your first podcast of 2023?
This is the first podcast of 2023.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Always have to make sure I say that for everyone's first one of 2023, but continue on.
First one of 2023, and yet for the third, fourth, fifth, sixth consecutive year, something like that, we have Kyrie Irving drama. Kyrie Irving's camp put out a statement. His contract's expiring, and the ball's in Brooklyn Nets courts to work on a deal. Apparently, he didn't like the deal that was offered, with a lot of contingencies tied to it, to them winning a championship. And this is all going on while the Nets have been staying afloat. Kyrie's been balling out with Kevin Durant injured. Fast forward to last week, and he requests a trade, Martin. And in short order, ahead of the trade deadline on Thursday, they sat him out last night for a quote-unquote sore ankle. We'll get into rest management here in a second. But as we start this podcast, breaking news. Kyrie Irving has been traded to the Dallas Mavericks. Martin, in the deal, the Mavericks are sending Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, a 2027 first-round pick, and a series of, a 2029 first-round pick to the Nets, and a couple second-round picks. My first reaction is, it's good for Luka for the next 4 months, but what did Dallas give up for a guy that probably, who knows what we don't know with Kyrie? Is he going to say something to get suspended again? Is he just going to sign with another team in free agency here in 3 or 4 months? So, and then you gave up all these assets. Brooklyn does seem to get, some capable wing players around KD, again, somebody who's really forced the issue. And Kyrie, Martin, what are your thoughts? So 2029 going to Brooklyn, obviously they recouped some of the picks back they gave up for Harden and trades, and you name it, and some other assets, Beasley. Yeah, what do you think?
Like you already eloquently stated at the beginning of this podcast, this L7C podcast is will be going into its third year now, like third year, fourth season. And on our NBA side, every year we've talked about Kyrie Irving, like every year. And not from the sense of, he's a fantastic basketball player, but it's always something with this guy. So because you were actually the one who broke the news in our group chat about Kyrie demanding a trade, I had to do a double take because I was like, this just makes no sense. Like you said earlier, he's been balling. And the Mavericks, I didn't see them on the list. Obviously, people thought about the Lakers, and you and I have said on previous podcasts, that wasn't going to happen. The Lakers have no money and no trade assets. And then people talked about the Clippers and all that. And now we have the Mavericks. Me personally, like you said, for the short term, 4 months, but then the Mavericks will probably lose in the second round and then he'll leave. So I don't think it's going to be worth it unless he.
I like conceptualizing a little bit further, Martin. So let's turn 4 months into 120 days. 120 days you give up Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, a first-round pick, and 2 seconds that you still could have 121 days from now. Was it worth it?
No. The only way it's worth it is if you win a championship, and they're not going
If they
to.
if they win a championship, correct. But I mean, it absolutely raises the ceiling of the Dallas Mavericks right now for the next 120 days.
But how far they
go?
Yeah, like how far did the ceiling truly get raised?
No, it absolutely got raised. I mean, Kyrie's averaging 25, 5, and 5. I'm not quite sure what the parameters are when you're named an all-star in one conference and you change teams, although with this new thing, it kind of doesn't matter because you're doing like a pick'em backyard pickup game kind of thing for all-stars. So I'm not sure how that works, if he gets replaced or not on the east side, or if Kyrie absorbs. What is also a breaking injury today is Steph's going to be out for 2 weeks or so. But, I mean, if you're looking at the West right now, you know, Phoenix has been sputtering. You're supposed to get Devin Booker back soon. You know, the Warriors, you know, are sitting there, I think, at the 7th seed.
Mm-hmm.
Less than Warrior season for sure. You're losing Steph for the next 2 weeks. You know, outside of Denver, and outside of Denver really, and you know, New Orleans, it's starting to get healthy again. Memphis, I mean, I still think that's enough wide open where you could have some crazy Luka Kyrie games. And, you know, again, they need to probably do another move or two or be players in the buyout market, because, I mean, they just really have no assets around them. Tim Hardaway's going to shoot 3 for 14 every game, it seems like. That's not going to get it done around them. But, yeah, I mean, it raises their ceiling for the next 120 days. Will they become the 4th team to get burned by Kyrie in 121 days? I think time has shown that they will.
Yeah, because if you look at the West right now, like number 1's the Nuggets, number 2's the Grizzlies, number 3's the Kings, number 4's the Clippers, 5 Phoenix, 6 Dallas, 7 Warriors, 8 Timberwolves, Jazz 9, Pelicans 10. And then you have the Blazers right outside of the Pelicans, and you have Blazers, Thunder, Lakers, who all can still make the play-in, but it's just looking like it's just for the pieces they gave up. Obviously, we're going to have to see it. We've seen so many NBA trades where a star goes somewhere that it just doesn't work because of play style, because I wonder how that is going to be now with Kyrie and Luka both on the top of the key. Both aren't known for their defensive prowess, and in the playoffs, you're going to need some defense. So that's what I'm just thinking for a fact. Like, is Kyrie going to be guarding Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs?
It's going to be, I mean, there's going to be very little defense. I see a lot of similarities between Brooklyn ball and Dallas ball now, where you move Kyrie over, that, you know, it's ISO heavy. But these are guys that are going to torch their one-on-one matchup. That, you know, again, they're going to struggle when it's one of the two on the floor and 4 scrubs essentially around them. But I mean, we've seen crazy things happen, but we'll see if they're going to be holding the bag in 121 days and be the next Kyrie victim. He is just an absolute enigma. I mean, I got to tell you, let's talk about the inverses. You know, when the Cavs acquired Donovan Mitchell, there's a lot of talk about, you know, the rumored Knicks that didn't get him. Let's talk about the LA Lakers. I mean, I really thought he was going to go to one of the 2 LA teams. I mean, I think Woj was tweeting last night the Clippers were in pursuits, added their name to the list of folks. You know, again, the Lakers are still holding on to those picks. LeBron is not getting any younger, and they need assistance. I mean, Anthony Davis has been balling out when he plays, but again, he has missed a gajillion games and will continue to. He cannot hold up. I thought, you know, I don't know what Kyrie would have been worth in terms of if you're getting up one of those picks or not, comparatively. I mean, the assets Brooklyn got in this trade were probably about as good as you're going to get for sure. I mean, I don't see, unless you're the Lakers trying to throw 2 picks together, but I absolutely wouldn't have done that. It's interesting. So I think the Lakers are definitely losers in this for not getting it done somehow or incorporating a third team. But we'll see, Martin. This is an interesting trade for Dallas, and one I think Dallas had to make.
Agreed. Just really out of nowhere, because I didn't think they'd be the ones to get him, but we'll see. We'll see when both are on the court.
For Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a Brooklyn Nets fan?
Can you imagine being Kevin Durant? Like, this is your supposed best. This is what Kyrie too. I get it. Multi-millionaire, super successful. I'm just a normal person. But if I call someone my best friend, I'm not just going to leave them out to dry like he did Kevin Durant.
It's just, I mean, I think some of the stuff with philosophical differences with Kyrie, whatever. But again, Kyrie was not in a position with the vaccine stuff, with the incense stuff that ran Harden out of the building, the anti-Semitic stuff, the doubling down on it, the suspension this year. I mean, he is not reliable in the least. Don't get me wrong, if you're in the NBA Finals, I think Kyrie can put it together for however many games you need, 4 to 7, and that's a guy I want on my team that's going to win the finals. But don't count on him to get you anywhere near that. And again, it's amazing to me. I'm thinking back 4 or 5 years ago, he and Kevin Durant handpicked the situation in Brooklyn.
Yes.
They bring in Steve Nash, ran him out of the building. They lobby to get James Harden. You're left with Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons after the dust settles. You have tons of picks gone in that process. You got Spencer Dinwiddie back, who's, a capable average point guard. But, not to the ceiling of what this team was supposed to be. It's just, I feel bad. I feel bad for Brooklyn in all this. This is the epitome of the worst parts of player empowerment, this whole thing. They literally just playing 2K on a couch, and they have spoiled this franchise for years.
Yeah, there's nothing
We'll be interested to see where Kevin goes from here.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kevin Durant's supposed to be coming, like, he's going to come back to Spencer, even though Nick Claxton, he's improved a lot this year.
I really like Nick Claxton. Huge strides.
But
and interesting, Kevin's the only one who re-upped. All three were offered extensions, and he's the only one who re-upped to stay in Brooklyn.
Yeah. So saying with his thing in Brooklyn too, because if you go to the All-Star starters, like you already said, like in the East, it's him and Kyrie were both named starters. Giannis captain, Cleveland's own Donovan Mitchell, and then Jason Tatum. And then you go to the West, Luka, Steph, LeBron captain, Jokic, and Zion. Before we get to the reserves, Evan, there was anytime we get these starting fives and all that stuff, it's always people saying this person should have been voted in, this person. I do want to say, for the people who don't know, three voting groups determine the starters. So fans are 50%, NBA players 25%, and media panel 25%. And in the description on this episode, I'll put the link so you guys can see who voted for who and all that stuff. But in terms of popularity, no one's ever going to beat LeBron and all of that stuff. But some of the big snubs, Evan, Joel Embiid, who is at that point in time, was the second leading scorer, 2-time MVP runner-up. He's not starting. When you saw that, what did you think?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, it just shows how competitive things are in the front court in the East.
Yeah.
We saw 2 Sundays ago, Joel just absolutely torch Nikola Jokic at home, and which is just, I mean, it was such a great. Jokic, had a good game, but I mean, it wasn't. I think it was 44 and 18 or something. I mean, Embiid just from the get-go was all gas. Like, he is an absolute monster. That's the part for me that, again, I just don't trust the fans' perspective. Is a lot of them are voting on popularity and names, and the tip of the cap when it comes to fan voting typically errs on the side of your scoring dominant wings with the flashy dunks and transition dunks and the step back threes. And I mean, a guy like Embiid, I think, suffers a little bit from an optics perspective there. Obviously he's in the All-Star game here, but that was one glaring omission from a starting lineup. But I mean, I get it. This conversation for me always goes to, such and such was missed out of, or was left out of the starting lineup, or was left out of the team in general. Who are you pulling to replace?
That's always the big question.
Part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with Tatum, with Durant, who is the third front court
Giannis
starter? Giannis. Yeah. I mean, it's so you're splitting hairs, especially in a year like this year. I can't recall 4 front court players that equally were deserving. I mean, somebody had to be left out, and I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Tatum's the best player on the best team in basketball right now. Giannis is. I'm not taking Giannis off. That guy arguably is the best player in the NBA, I think, across the board, offensively, defensively, you name it. And Kevin Durant, you could probably make an argument now if you're trying to find it with, him missing some games and stuff. But, I mean, Kevin had a stretch there that was just insane. It's just so tough.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I think that's one of those things that where if you're going to have the conversation like this person got snubbed and all this stuff, is like, okay, well, then just tell us who you would take out. And then if you can't give an answer, then there's nothing you can do. Obviously, he made the reserves and all of this. Obviously, down the line, though, it's more implications because, as you know, like the all NBA first, second, and third team, those are tied to some people's contracts. Like you get bonuses and all that. And if you miss one of those teams, you list out on that bonus. I remember that happened to Clay one year. So those ones are definitely, it's more severe and it's definitely hard.
It is hard. There's so much tied to it. Again, I trust the coaches. I trust the media, I think, a little bit more, but than the fans do. But I think I had more questions about one of the starters for the West, Martin, and that was Zion Williamson.
Yep.
Yeah. What were your thoughts?
I personally don't think he should be starting. I understand that is more probably fan and media and all that stuff, but he hasn't played. I feel like he hasn't played in months.
It feels like it.
And he's starting, which means someone else is just going to fill that spot and have him there to wave his hand. But he shouldn't be starting. That's just me. I'd have started. I think Markkanen or Sabonis deserved it. Yes.
And I'd say Sabonis probably.
100% agree. And all those people, because I'm not going to lie, man, in terms of having a better year, and I know popularity and all this stuff, and I'm not saying this person's better than this person, but right now having a better year, there's not that many point guards having a better year than SGA from Oklahoma City.
Phenomenal. I mean, I mean, it's amazing to me. So, I mean, their top pick doesn't even get to play. Mm-hmm. Hurts his foot in the preseason. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, they're looking into the play-in right now. I mean, and they're primed to be in the Wembanyama sweepstakes too. I mean, this team is on the up and up, and it's all because of Mr. Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, gotta definitely give a shout out to him, as that is the captain Byron Mitchell's team, the Oklahoma City Thunder. But he did make the reserves on the West, along with Paul George, Damian, Lamarcus, and your boy John Morant, Sabonis. One that people have their eye on, Jaren Jackson Jr. Some people feel like he shouldn't be a reserve. What are your thoughts on him?
He's missed a decent amount of time. I mean, he's having a heck of a defensive season. Yes. I mean, it is absolutely impressive. There's that Reddit thread going around that was even questioning hey, I think somebody's the home and away splits are so bad. I think somebody's juicing the stats at home Grizzlies games. And I mean, they took him out of Vegas, took him out of a vote for a couple days that you could bet on him for. The league put out a statement saying we review all footage and stats attributed, and we make adjustments afterwards, and everything has been earned. So, I mean, that just shows where he's been there. But that was an absolute surprise. I think a couple others for me, looking at the East beyond him, Tyrese Halliburton absolutely deserved it. First-time starter. I mean, they were like 1-10 with him out on that recent 11-game stretch he was out. DeMar DeRozan was a surprise for me, along with, I'll add in there, I think Julius Randle too.
Oh, for the East. For the East.
Yeah, for the East. And I think in place of Randle, I probably would have done his teammate Jalen Brunson. I mean, Randall's having a good year. Don't get me wrong, but I think Brunson. I mean, I don't think Randall's the best player on his own team.
I think the problem with that is since they have to select the 14 reserves, they got to go two guards, 3 front court players, and 2 of any position. I feel like since they're in that construct, that does hamper some things.
That makes sense. I mean, you can't have heavy guards and stuff, but I mean, I think there's going to be an opportunity here for some replacements. So obviously we know Steph's likely going to miss, so that opens up a hole in the West. East, I don't know if Durant's going to be back or not, so that potentially could be a spot open. Even Donovan Mitchell for the Cavs has been dealing with a crazy groin strain. He's missed 5 of the last 17 on and off. He's tried to come back and he hasn't looked good. And then obviously compounded by getting hit in the nuts by Dylan Brooks. That's the conversation. So, yeah, I mean, all-star wise, yeah, they're going to do the pick'em piece this year. Martin, what are your thoughts on that? Instead of doing a draft leading up to the game, they're going to do it literally right before. Are you buying that there's not background negotiations happening between the 2 captains to kind of figure out at least the first couple picks of who you're going to take, who am I going to take? Do you like this new setup?
Well, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I already think there's background stuff happening. It's one of those things, too, where with the All-Star game, obviously there's a whole bunch of offense, not really any defense. And from us growing up, sure, there was offense and all that stuff, but once it was like the fourth quarter and the game was actually close, they actually took it serious. I think that's been gone for the past couple of years, but I'm not really buying it. I know there's some stuff going on behind the scenes.
Martin, there's a number of folks who potentially, if we're going to make the case for snubs,
James Harden,
rebound year for James Harden.
Yep.
Not on this list as of now. 21 points a game, 10.9 assists, leading the league, 6.3 boards. Really rehabbing kind of his what our perception is of him after some down years. He's still not to the 30-some points a game scorer, and he's not going to be. It was, but best pick and roll combo in the league between him and Embiid statistically. That would be a guy that I think if there's an opening somehow on the East would be at the top of the list of, hey, deserves to get in. Do you disagree?
No, I 100% agree. I thought he was going to get in the first time. I know I've been hard on the guy just because of playoff performances, because that's what you're judged on in this league. But he hasn't had a bounce back season. And he obviously tweeted the disrespect. I thought he should have been a reserve. I agree.
Trae Young.
Oof.
Statistically, he's there. I think Atlanta is kind of in a perpetual dumpster fire of sorts. There's a lot of discussion of him running out yet another coach in Nate McMillan. It was reported at one point that McMillan was considering resigning mid-year. Trae was, I think, suspended for a game for potentially going home from a practice. McMillan told him, listen, you can stay here and practice, you can go home, and he went home. It's not working between him and DeJounte. kind of like we were thinking it would. I mean, of the two, Mitchell and Garland are absolutely the better combo. The new acquisition all-star you get in, working out. But, numbers-wise, he's 27-9. It's kind of hollow. It feels like it's hollow numbers, but, I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at.
No, it's not. They're both. It wasn't a good fit. Well, it's still not a good fit. Obviously, they could turn it around in some way, but it's not a good fit. It's not working. Not working the way they would want to work. Because I'm assuming Atlanta really quickly. Atlanta would not want to be when they made that trade. They're literally 27-27. Just listen to this crazy stuff. 27-27. 17-17 in the Eastern Conference, 13-11 at home, 14-16 on the road, 5-5 their past 10 games. They're literally just almost a straight 500 team. And when you make that move, that's not what you want to be.
No, it's not. I mean, that's an all-in move as it gets. Obviously they're still trying to year 17,000, it seems, trying to find a new home for John Collins. They value him a certain rate. There's been some discussion of some kind of package around him and Jay Crowder, who's been sitting out ahead of the deadline next week. There's a lot of moving parts. Martin, I've been trying to find the stat while we've been talking.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have. So let's go back to Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah.
All-star, 945 minutes played. Let's not talk the games. Let's talk about minutes.
Mm-hmm.
945 minutes played. Jaren Jackson Jr. is an all-star. 933 minutes played for this next guy, who is averaging 27 points a game, 12 boards, and 2.5 assists.
Is that Anthony Davis?
That is Anthony Davis. So, I mean, we think too often of how many games they've missed and everything else. I mean, if you quantify it by actual minutes played, check-in table, you're on the floor, you're competing. I mean, Anthony Davis is blowing them out of the water with 12 less minutes played.
That's true.
So that, I mean, if there's another injury, potentially, I mean, obviously Anthony's back, he's playing more games. We'll see. That could be another replacement. Anybody else we haven't covered on the snub piece? Hey, I think there's a competition there.
I'd be remiss to talk about another home state, Darius Garland.
Yep. I would love to see Darius Garland in this game. And I mean, he has had, so you add Donovan Mitchell, and it's marginal, but he's averaging more points per game now. He's up over 8 assists. I think he's at 22 and 8, right?
Yeah.
But it's tough because I know once the vacancy happens on the East, they're going to go Harden next. And then you're talking Trey at 27-9 and Darius at 22-8. It's kind of that front court conversation with the starters. Like, who do you go with and who values what and where? There were some discussions about, Drew Holiday. It's been like, I think they said, what has it been, 8 years between starts in the All-Star game or being named for the All-Star game? Something crazy. That's another guy that, I mean, I probably would have put Harden in, honestly, over Drew. Obviously, Drew brings a different thing defensively, but I'd love to see Garland somehow making this game. But I barring injuries, and we don't wish injuries upon people, I don't think it's going to happen. But a heck of a season.
Yeah, but we have, with him, obviously, we got more things that we want the Cavs to get to. So we will see on that. All-Star Weekend is coming up. It is the 6th. When is that game? Sunday, February 19th. So President's Day weekend. So you'll have all the stuff, skills competition, all that jazz that weekend. It is in Utah this year. So 7:30 TNT, February 19th. So Evan, our last podcast we talked a little bit about that situation in Brooklyn, where I think it was the game in Indiana, where they sat 8 of their players, and we really harped on the fact that for normal people, especially in December, that's a kid's Christmas present, and that's a normal medium wage family saving up hundreds and hundreds of dollars for all that stuff to see their favorite player one time and then they don't show. And we tore that one to pieces, that podcast. It has gotten worse with load management because now everyone has a take on this problem of people sitting out and all of that jazz. Obviously, the one that made worldwide news was the kid from Argentina who had the sign saying I flew 4,000 whatever something miles to see Jimmy Butler, and he was not playing in that game. I actually believe it was Jamal Crawford, who works at TNT now, one of my favorite players ever, by the way. He texted Jimmy about it and all that stuff. Jimmy the next day, again, shouting out Jimmy Butler because all around good dude, good human being. He brought the kid to the Heat facility, gave him a tour, took a picture with his family and all that stuff, and then got him seats for the next game. That's Jimmy Butler because that's Jimmy Butler. He is a really good dude. That's not everyone else in the NBA. Some of the other people in the NBA don't give a crap. And it's really gotten to the point where it's a national story and a problem. Stan Van Gundy, who I respect his basketball knowledge immensely, he's like, it doesn't make sense that athletes are better now, medicine's better now, treatment's better now, and we have players missing more games than people did back then. Just a couple of weeks ago, Richard Jefferson, which is his obviously world champion Richard Jefferson with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Amazing story.
Yeah, his amazing story about his, because he talked about his dad and his people, his family, they work normal people jobs. So they saved the money, all that stuff. And then when he was playing against David Robinson in the finals, he told him how he was his favorite player and he played that game and what it meant for him to play that game. Vanessa Bryant, obviously, we're also 3-year anniversary of Kobe's passing, talked about when she would talk to her husband about playing her. He's like, what about all those people who worked really hard to save up tickets to come see me play? But it's a problem now, Evan. It's a real problem because it's affecting the product and the fans' interest in the product from going to the games. Because why would you want to go to a game if randomly the people you want to see don't play and you don't get a refund?
You don't. You know, Richard Jefferson's story struck a chord with me too.
Yes.
You know, so a couple other details in there and a great coverage on all those pieces. I mean, those are the anecdotal heartstring pieces of why it's so important financially, why it's so important, how it affects you know, the play on the court in terms of expectations, wins and losses, all those types of things. That we have a serious problem in this league with this. But you know, on Richard's note, he wanted to go see David Robinson play. His family could only afford for Richard to go play.
Yes.
And Richard or go watch David Robinson play. So his dad dropped them off, went and watched the game in a bar, and then came and picked them up. Could not afford to bring in the rest of the fam.
Like, and shout out to his parents because that's real parents. Shout out to them.
Absolutely. Just again, those are the stories that add up. The Jimmy Butler piece too. I mean, I can't imagine flying, you know, all the way around the world to see, or you know, how halfway through the globe to go see a player play. I will say on that note, though, if I'm going to be a little negative here, if you've got the extra bag to be flying from another country all the way in comfortably and it's not hurting you financially and everything else to go get near lower bowl seats to see your player play, like I have a different feel for you other than, you know, somebody really struggling who's, you know, with, you know, some kind of working 2-3 jobs, you know, that kind of situation. Like,
well, and that from that sense for the child, though, the child's not the one working.
Oh yeah, child's independent to all that piece, but still, I mean, the matters rings home still that there's issues here with this load management stuff. Martin, I don't want to bring it up, but because it was such a bad result, but the Golden State Warriors played the Boston Celtics in a shootout,
National
on the
televised
first
game.
of the back-to-back, and then went to go play the Cleveland Cavaliers afterwards, who didn't have Donovan Mitchell for one of those 5 of the 17 games I was talking about earlier. And they decided that all 4 of their big horses, Draymond, Clay, Steph, and Andrew Wiggins, were going to sit out. They dogged the Cavs that night really, really, really bad. That was one of the more embarrassing losses by a Cavs team that usually is competitive, even down players. That was bad. But I personally know of a former coworker's family who wanted to go see Steph play, drove up here from Circleville up to Cleveland, and did not get to see not one All-Star, not 2 All-Stars. Didn't get to see 3 of Golden State's All-Stars play the Cavs that night.
No,
the owners have leverage heading into the next round of negotiations with the CBA here. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how it's tied in contractually or something else, but I mean, you lose revenue, people dump tickets. You know, again, like when those schedules are released, I remember looking at that Cavs game. I had it was against Indiana, so it was lower price, but I was 3 rows off the floor. That same ticket was 4 times that cost for that one seat for Golden State looking ahead. And imagine if somebody had paid that, and somebody did pay that, expecting to see certain players play, and you get to see Jordan Poole and a couple of the bench dudes roll up. Like, that hurts the league, and that hurts the bottom dollar for the fans. The owners can absorb the hit, but it hurts it for the fans.
Yeah. I also want to say, too, about that Warrior situation. This is the thing that really just pisses people off about it is, they played Boston. That game went to overtime. Boston beat them by 3. The next day was Cleveland, and they all sit out because of all of these mysterious injuries. But then 2 days later, on the 22nd, they're all playing again, randomly healed.
Was that against Detroit?
The Nets.
Oh, Nets, yeah. It's funny how that works. You just list whatever down. You go, oh, yeah, it's been lingering, and, like, the league doesn't do anything about it.
Because I wanted to read this to you,
I don't know if this is a committee that looks into things, Martin. I don't know if this is again, it's so subjective when the player says whatever, and, I mean, again, they'll lie about it. But, I mean, at the same point, it's a joke. Everybody knows it's a joke. Yeah, miraculously healed. There's no way. 48 hours off. Healed your ligaments, tendons, muscles, like whatever it is. There's no way.
This past Saturday during the ESPN showcase game on ABC with the Warriors and Mavericks, they were showing games missed by stars this year. Kawhi's missed 25 games. Devin's missed 25. Anthony Davis 24. Zion 21. Paul George 16. Steph Curry 15. Kevin Durant 10. 12. I'm sorry. Joel Embiid 12. Damian 12. Those are the ones that they listed. Obviously, some of those stuff there were some injuries and all that stuff, but with the Kawhi especially, he is Mr. Load Management in the forefront. But it's also things with the management and all of that, coaches and all that stuff saying, oh no, we'll just load manage, this, that. And their suggestion obviously is shorten the season. But even if you shorten the season, there's no guarantee that load management's going to stop.
There's not. It'll continue.
So, like you said, this bargaining agreement is going to be very interesting because if I'm an owner, like I'm an owner of a team, I'm like, this has got to stop. Like our money, this is affecting the bottom line. We're not the team. Most of the teams that are doing this aren't even the ones who win the championship. Like the Clippers have done this for like 4 years and can't even get to the finals. So it's like
another fan base I feel really bad for. Martin, I mean, when they go back to the negotiation table here and they sit across from, the Players Association, all the lawyers, all the hounds, you name it, and they're going back and forth across the table. There's 3 names here that have severely hurt the players' cause and they've lost negotiating ground because of it. Those three players are Kyrie Irving,
Yep.
Ben Simmons,
Yep.
and Kawhi Leonard.
Yes. 100% agree.
Each with their own things about it, but there has to be contingencies built in. There has to be some accountability Kawhi is king load management. He's not a behavior problem. He is king load management.
Yep.
Kyrie is a behavior problem.
Yes.
And you have Ben Simmons, who knows what is going on in Ben Simmons' head, but clearly he's not the all-star he once was.
Hasn't been the same since the Atlanta game.
Yeah, his motivations are very suspect at best. He will load manage himself just at a whim. Those three players have severely hurt negotiating power for the rest of the league.
100% agree. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we're having an emergency podcast whenever it happens, because there's going to be a lockout.
Yeah, the players might take that route. Again, there's a lot of money on the table with these new deals and rights and stuff coming up. Again, it's just the sport keeps growing, the salary caps keep rising, the players are going to get a chunk, but just unbelievable where things could go, and I'm just not sure what's at the end of the rainbow here for the solution, but it needs fixed.
Agreed. It's just unfortunate because we've been watching basketball. Shoot, now you can technically say decades. Technically, you can say decades now, and This wasn't a problem until these past 5 years, and now it just feels like it's a looming thing over the league, and it's one of those things where the popularity won't get up to where it's supposed to be, because it's if I drive to a game and I pay all this money and stuff and my player's not playing, I'm never going to want to come there. Or if I'm watching it on TV, I'm devoting time and effort to watch. And sure, if it's not my team, if it's my team, I'm going to watch. But if it's not, and the stars aren't playing, unless you're a basketball junkie, you're turning it off. So now you're losing TV revenue. It's and I just feel like a lot of the players, besides the Jimmy Butler thing, they don't care. They've lost that disconnect from the normal people that they champion on social issues.
13 out of 14 days in a 2-week span, baseball players, for the most part, especially the stars, are playing all those games. It's not as physical in terms of bumping into other human beings, but if you're an outfielder sprinting to the corners every day and catching fly balls and then going to the plate and then running the base pads as hard as you can, that's probably about as close as comparison I think as we're going to find in terms of the frequency of plays and games during the week. With some of that piece in, soccer's up there too. Soccer teams maybe play twice a week, but in La Liga and Champions League and those things, but not to the 3-4 times a week basketball does. And you just don't. You don't see it. You see some lineup changes in baseball here and there, but again, this is just newfound territory we got to get past.
Evan, I do want to say something more about the basketball thing, because as Charles Barkley said, what are we talking about? It's basketball. Anyone who's played, I played basketball through high school. My youngest brother played all the way to some of the highest levels in college. When you're coming up, you were literally playing 5 games a week. Nothing's wrong. You're playing 5 days a week. There are some tournaments where you play 3 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday, back to back to back. And this is a high school, and you're perfectly fine. But then now in the NBA, it's I can't do this, can't do that. And I'm just thinking of I always relate it to normal people. You have construction workers who are doing a lot more physical tasking things for less money than these NBA players in 5 days a week in the super heat or super cold. They can't have load management days. And they're doing a less glamorous job. It's just one of those things where it's it's not a good look. And it goes for some people who are like, that's why I don't watch the prima donna NBA, because this, that, and that's not what the NBA is about. It's the best basketball in the world, but the load management thing is
it's all about the stars, Martin. Let's be clear about who it affects.
That is true.
Players in this All-Star game. It's the players on the fringes of this All-Star game. It's not Jose Alvarado out there grinding every night for 15, 16 minutes off the bench, to make sure he stays in the rotation and throwing his body to the crowd, diving after that loose ball. It's not the Kyle Kuzmas. It's not the Jetty Osmonds. It's not a lot of these players that they know their time is very limited in this league. Established all stars get to like hang their hats and rest their laurels on, the work they've done. And once they get to that certain tier, I'm going to take a game off here. I'm going to take a game off here. I'm going to take off a game here. Yeah, it ain't going at what it was last week, or it's a little tight, so I'm fit. That's the group we're talking about.
Correct.
There's plenty of other players that, don't get me wrong, if they were that established, if Jose Alvarado was averaging 30 points a game, that dude probably rests too. But we've just set this expectation that if you're at a certain stature scoring wise, you get certain privileges, and that shouldn't be the case.
Agreed on that. Evan, we're a little over the mid-season now, and just real quick, who are your mid-season favorites right now? MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved?
So for me, my MVP is Joel Embiid.
Okay.
It's the Jokic conversation again. Jokic is averaging a 25, 10, and 10. So I understand what I say when I say it, but I think it's 1A and 1B again, kind of like how it was last year. But I think the head-to-head matchups matter in that regard. You still have Giannis and Tatum in there too, with probably your 3-4 potentially. Not necessarily in that order, but those are the four I'm looking at, I think, for MVP right now. Defensive Player of the Year, I'm going to go with Jaren Jackson. I think this has got to be the year. I mean, this is only year 2, but I think also this has got to be the year, if we're talking about other names too, that Evan Mobley starts to shoot up the list. I mean, it is when he's in the lineup, teams do not go into the paint on him. He can switch. He can. He's top 5 in contested shots. He's just a freak, a Kevin Garnett lengthy freak without all the fire. It's amazing. But I have Jaren Jackson as my defensive MVP. Most Improved, you might have me there. I think it's tough because he was already established, but I mean, it's Lauri Markkanen or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I think it's splitting hairs with Shai because Shai was probably already averaging 25 or so a game last year, but it's just he's taken it to this new tier, scoring almost 32 a game, and what he's able to do for his team right now. Those are the two names I think for at the midseason point I'm going with for Most Improved. Lowry, probably first-time All-Star, probably gets a slight nod now just because of how well established. And Most Improved generally is you're in this basket now. Shai's always been in this basket. He's elevated what he's been able to do, but he was a household name, and Lauri Markkanen wasn't. I would love to have Lauri Markkanen on the Cavs again someday down the road. But Martin, who are yours?
MVP, that game against Jokic moved Embiid up to 1A, 1B for me, but I can't knock a dude who is in theory potentially playing better maybe than his past 2 MVP years, averaging a triple-double at this point in stage.
Yeah.
And his team's the number 1 team in the Western Conference. And Evan, you know how this goes. Best player on the best team, yada, yada, yada. So that's really hard for me to knock down. Now, if the Sixers which in theory they could. If they can get to the number one in the East, I would consider Embiid. But again, it's good to have this type of rivalry and especially with big men, because as people are saying, big men were dying, and you got these new age big men who are still dominating, which is great for the league and taller people growing up. So those two, Tatum's in consideration because of what Boston is doing. But the past couple weeks, man, I think Giannis can sneak back and win this again. Like, if you've been paying attention to what he's been doing, if they get on another run, he might come out of nowhere and win MVP, because what he's been doing these past couple of weeks is ridiculous.
Wouldn't surprise me.
So those would be my 4 right now. Defensive player, I'm with you on Jaren. I also think Brooke and Nick Claxton can get some love. And like you said with Evan, most improved, right with you. It's tough because, like you said, with SGA last year, but like this year, he's like no one. You wouldn't think last year you wouldn't put SGA in your top 12, 10 players in all of the NBA. This year, you can make a case. He is playing right now with one of the top 10 players in the world. It's tough. But then Markkanen, no one expected this out of him, and I wouldn't be mad either way, but currently I'm going SGA. So Byron, I was also, when you're editing this, remember I went SGA, just saying. But then who did we have 6 man of the year? Did we say 6 man?
We did not say that, no.
I mean, I don't know. Like, there's Westbrook, Poole, Brogdon, Norman Powell. I mean, I feel like it's a star
Russell
thing.
I think Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I think Westbrook as well.
I can't believe we're saying that.
He's going to be, man, now I'm trying to think of my basketball history. I think he is going to be the very few, if not the only person to ever win MVP and 6 man of the year. I have to really think. I know it's not recent. It's not recent.
Yeah, it's not recent.
I could see it something happening like the Bill Walton.
Yeah, Bill Walton was the first one that came to mind. But did he win it with the Blazers, and then did he win 6 man with the Celtics?
Yeah, like that'd be the only person I would have to think in.
Yep, most valuable player 78, but did he win? Yep, 6 man in 86.
Called it, baby. L7C. We know what we're talking about when it comes to hoops.
Yes, we do.
So Evan, so tonight, Cleveland Cavaliers have a game. How are you feeling? That Golden State one, obviously in our group message, it was terrible. But how are you feeling about the Cavs right now, mid-season? I think we both said around 4, 3, 5 seed, 50 wins. That's where we were saying, which they're on pace for that. What are you thinking about the Cavs right now?
So they're 9-8 in their last 17. 5 of those games they did not have Donovan Mitchell, and Donovan's banged up. Don't get me wrong. I kind of would like him to sit out of the All-Star game, if I'm being honest. I mean, he's just not – he's had several, like, 1 for 6 3-point games, 1 for 7 3-point games, like in the stretch. Like, he just doesn't look like himself. I mean, this is the first time we've mentioned this on this podcast, I think, since the last time we talked. I don't recall it being on the last one. I mean, the dude dropped 71 in a game this year.
No, we did not. We didn't have a chance to talk about that. Nope.
He dropped 71. And this wasn't Devin Booker. Hey, the other teams helped me out by fouling over and over, and we're just chucking. Like, you needed those points. He got us to overtime with the intentional miss put back. This guy is capable, not obviously of that every night or that every 5 or 6 years. That's a once in a career thing. But the guy is a bona fide bucket. I think of late, just with him being out, I think part of it is he and Garland have gotten back into this your turn, my turn thing, which has kind of been clunky a little bit offensively. I think at this juncture, again, January was a win-one, lose-one kind of month. To go 9-8 over 17. They're sitting there with 32 wins, tied with Brooklyn win-wise, but they played 2 more games, and they're behind a game in the loss column. Who knows how Brooklyn's going to move forward after this? I mean, they get some pieces back in a lose-lose situation with Kyrie yet again. Kevin Durant will have something to say about where they finish. Philly, Milwaukee, and Boston have been great. I think you and I have been at this long enough to know that injuries are going to play a role one way or another. I mean, at this point last year, I think the Cavs were in the All-Star break or around the All-Star break were the number 1 seed, and then they just fell way down into the play-in at 7 because of just debilitating injuries. I don't think I've talked about enough at the national level, but Ricky Rubio's come back. He had a really good run in the fourth. The other night, I think he had 13 points, 2-3 assists, hit some threes. I mean, that was kind of the injury after, or the kind of thing that willed us to victory after Mitchell got ejected. He picked up his minutes, and another great ball handler in there doing Ricky things that we saw him do last year before the big injury. There's a lot of discussion about what to do with the trade deadline coming up, Martin. The Cavs are obviously they've gone all in on Donovan Mitchell. I'm not sure how to improve the roster. If the Nets are looking to kind of do some kind of fire sale or something, I mean, Royce O'Neal is sitting over there. We're not giving up first round picks because we don't have them. So if we make the playoffs this year, our first goes to Indiana for the Karis LeVert trade. He would be our asset potentially to trade around. And he's so hit or miss. Like when he gets the minutes, he's an 18-point per game scorer. When he doesn't, he struggles to find his way. He holds on the ball too long, and he's kind of more of an assist guy in that kind of third banana role. So it's tough. He's a free agent coming up. Cavs are gonna have to decide. Potentially too, you might lose him in free agency if you don't come to terms. Kevin's contract comes off the books this summer. I'd love to see us renegotiate for a hometown, adopted hometown. He's from Lake Oswego, Oregon, but guy that you potentially could get some money freed up to go after somebody, I think Harrison Barnes is on the market. I don't know if Wiggins is potentially yet, but this team is just hurting for that 6'8" plus wing. We have the song Enigma of I don't know why Dylan Windler's still on the roster. He is 6'8". He shoots threes. I think he's played like 82 games in 5 years or 4 years or something like that. I mean, he's just kind of holding a spot contractually that could be a throwing thing in my eyes until he plays, but he might be inching closer to playing. But I think above all else right now with Ricky back, JB Bickerstaff's struggled a little bit, I think more than he has with some of his lineups. I don't know if you're seeing it in the games you're watching, but there's times where teams just runs against us. He's not yanking the starters out enough and getting in the second wind off the bench. And the bench scoring has been really bad of late. I mean, Kevin's had some intentional DNPs in there. He's had some thumb injury stuff, but he has not been himself. Aside from Ricky and then resurgence from, Jetty, he had a 7 for 7 3-point game early last week. Another huge game off the bench the other night. We're really hurting for bench scoring in any way, shape, or form. So how we get more depth ahead of the trade deadline next Thursday, I don't know. I also don't want to leverage, the farm for a win now type thing with as tight as this league is right now and to hurt us when, hey, we're talking about 120 days here. Can you wait till free agency, renegotiate some contracts with Kevin and find a reliable wing or, again, every year you pass, Martin, you get the next year's, or you get like 6 years from now, it's first available. So like teams could only trade their 2029 this year. Well, July 1, you can trade your 2030. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be trading 5, 6, 7 years in the future yet. But if you have those, maybe you're more willing to get back into those even years, around the CPN role where you can't trade successive first round picks to be able to leverage and find an asset somewhere. So that's my Cavs take. I like where they're at. They definitely left some wins on the board for sure, but it is the epitome of quote unquote this league right now in terms of parity. in terms of, where those top three teams are at the East. And, we might well have a say for the 4th seed here, depending on where this Brooklyn plane lands, yet amidst another disaster.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing more I really want to add to it for the fact that now after post All-Star break, really just got to step it up and hold the course, want to be in the top 4, want to have 50 wins and all of that to get into the playoffs and just to be healthy. But we really got to step it up because we don't want something that happened, like you said, last year, how we were number 1 going to the All-Star break, then injuries killed us, and then we're in the play-in. So definitely want to be a top 4 seed when we're talking playoffs in April. Now, the last thing, we're already going to say he broke the record because by the time you guys listen to this episode, the record would already be broken. LeBron James breaking the all-time scoring record, which was held by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's going to be present for it because the games that's going to happen is either this one against Oklahoma City on Tuesday or the Milwaukee Bucks on Thursday. He already said he's going to be there. So the records, we're saying it future tense. The record is broken. LeBron James has broken the record. Congratulating him on that. And 20 years of longevity, health, elevated top tier play for all those years and doing it in consistent fashion. And yeah, I mean, nothing truly else to add from my end. Just congratulations to him. It's a testament to that. And I know that he obviously is going to cherish this record, but also but it also sucks that his team sucks. So he could break this record and then not be in even the play in this year, which I know is going to upset him, but it's a great thing to achieve, and congratulations to him. Evan?
I was 12 years old, just turned 12 years old, when the home state team was in a position to draft LeBron James. I got into the sport of basketball because of all the hoopla, friends talking at school and middle school, all those types of things about this new phenom. You had the chosen one on the front page of Sports Illustrated. You had all the hype and everything else. And, LeBron has lived up. I mean, you're not going to see somebody with the durability he's had, the amount of time he puts into his body, being able to stay on the court.
Yep.
There's tons of things you can nitpick with LeBron. Like, I think at times, again, his shadow looms large because of what he's brought to the game, all those types of things. And, there's been all these rumors over the years about how much say he's had in front office decisions. Aside from that, he's got 4 titles. He's got the MVPs. He was going to have the all-time NBA scoring record at the end of this week. Like, at a certain point, these things add up into an unbelievable basketball player to watch play the sport and play it well. To do the points, the rebounds, the assists, be in the top 10 for both those categories you get your Stockton, get your Pauls, doing the assists, but they're not scoring it the way LeBron is. And when it's all said and done, LeBron's going to have the all-time scoring record. And I hope people around being able to watch, because I think for a lot of people, a lot of quasi-basketball fans, a lot of diehard basketball fans like yourselves, you're going to remember where you were watching LeBron break the all-time record. And who knows if our lifetime we're going to see it again. I mean, it's taken 20 years for a player to come in and put in the amount of time to get close to, the 38,000 something points. And, at some point in his career, he'll hit 40. But it's just an unbelievable run. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and so many things have to go right for this to happen. One, there's no slippage. And then, there's no serious injuries. He hasn't had any serious injuries. Shoot, he just started really getting injured these past couple of years in LA. So him, like you said, keeping his body up, spending all that money on doctors and all that stuff. And 2, you have to be good enough to do it, which he obviously is. So those 2 things combined, because injuries are a lucky game. You can take care of yourself as much as you can and all of that. And sometimes the wrong step and your career's over. And he has not had any of that. And him playing at the high level that he's been able to play at for all of these years has been nothing short of amazing. Now, I will say from a basketball thing, obviously he came in the right time also. I'm not saying he wouldn't score all these points and all this stuff, but as the rules became more offensive friendly, just like in the NFL, it provided the opportunities to score more. It's just what it is. It's the truth. But that's not taking away from what he's been able to do these 20 plus years. And the L7C salutes LeBron James on being the new all-time leading scorer. And with that said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Make sure you like, rate, comment, subscribe wherever you listen to. We definitely appreciate all the love you guys have been showing us. And we will be back again talking hoops soon. And hopefully we'll see a couple of games of this Kyrie experiment in Dallas, see how it meshes and all of that. But we'll be back talking hoops because we're getting closer and closer to the NBA playoffs. And with that being said, the L7C podcast signing out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.